Marcus Thompson wiped his greasy hands on his work coveralls as he finished installing the new water heater in Mrs. Peterson's basement. The elderly woman had been without hot water for 3 days during the December cold snap, and Marcus couldn't bear the thought of her shivering through another night. He owned a small heating and plumbing repair business that barely kept him and his 8-year-old daughter Emma afloat, but he never turned away someone in genuine need. "That should do it, Mrs. Peterson," Marcus called up the basement stairs. "Give it about 30 minutes to heat up and you'll have hot water again." The grateful woman pressed a $20 bill into his calloused hands, though his usual service call cost $60. Marcus smiled and pocketed the money without complaint. Mrs. Peterson was on a fixed income, and he knew $20 was probably all she could spare. As he loaded his tools into his battered pickup truck, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from his daughter's school. Emma had forgotten her lunch money again. He sighed, knowing he'd need to swing by the school with $5 he couldn't really afford to spend. But Emma came first, always. The snow was falling heavier now, coating the already slick roads with fresh powder. Marcus drove carefully through the residential neighborhood, his truck's worn tires struggling for traction. He was thinking about the stack of unpaid bills on his kitchen table when he noticed a figure hunched over a car on the side of the road. A black sedan sat disabled with its hood up, steam rising from the engine. A person in an expensive-looking coat was standing beside it, looking helpless in the swirling snow. Marcus pulled over without thinking. His father had taught him that you always stop to help someone in trouble, especially in weather like this. "Engine trouble?" Marcus asked as he approached. The person turned, and Marcus saw it was a woman probably in her 40s with short dark hair and worried eyes. Despite her expensive clothing, she looked genuinely distressed. "It just started smoking and making horrible noises," she said, her voice carrying a slight accent Marcus couldn't place. "I pulled over, but I have no idea what's wrong. My phone barely has any signal out here." Marcus walked over to examine the engine. Steam was still rising from the radiator and he could smell coolant. "Looks like your radiator hose burst," he said, pointing to the split rubber hose. "That's why you're losing coolant and overheating." The woman looked at him with confusion. "Is that expensive to fix?" "Not too bad if you catch it early," Marcus replied, already mentally calculating whether he had the right size hose in his truck. "The parts may be $15, but if you keep driving without coolant, you'll seize the engine. That would cost thousands to repair." He walked back to his truck and rummaged through his supplies. Luck was with them. He had a radiator hose that would work as a temporary fix. He also grabbed his jug of coolant and his basic tools. "I can patch this up for you," Marcus said, returning to the sedan. "It's not a permanent fix, but it'll get you to a proper garage." The woman watched as Marcus worked in the falling snow, his hands quickly growing numb in the cold. He didn't have proper winter gloves. Those had worn out months ago and new ones weren't in the budget. But he worked steadily, replacing the burst hose and refilling the coolant system. "Why are you helping me?" the woman asked as Marcus tightened the last clamp. "You don't even know me." Marcus looked up from the engine, snowflakes catching in his beard. "My daughter Emma is 8 years old," he said simply. "I'd hope that if she were ever stranded somewhere, someone would stop to help her too. That's just what people should do for each other." The woman was quiet for a moment. "What's your name?" "Marcus Thompson. I run Thompson Heating and Plumbing." He closed the hood and wiped his hands on his coveralls again. "That should hold until you can get to a real mechanic. Just keep an eye on your temperature gauge and don't push it too hard." Marcus started the sedan's engine, and it ran smoothly without overheating. The woman smiled with relief. "How much do I owe you?" "Nothing," Marcus said, already heading back to his truck. "Just pay it forward sometime." "Wait," the woman called out. "At least let me pay for the parts." Marcus paused. $15 would help, especially with Emma's lunch money situation. But looking at the woman's genuine gratitude, he shook his head. "Keep your money. Just drive safe." As Marcus drove away, he glanced in his rearview mirror to see the woman still standing by her car, watching his truck disappear into the snow. He didn't think much of the encounter. It was just what any decent person would do. He had bigger concerns. like getting to Emma's school before the office closed and figuring out how to stretch their grocery budget until his next payment came in. What Marcus didn't know was that the woman he'd just helped, who had introduced herself simply as Sarah, was actually Sarah Montgomery, the billionaire heiress whose face had been plastered across financial news networks for the past week. She was on the run from federal investigators, corporate lawyers, and a media circus surrounding her family's crumbling business empire. Sarah had been driving back roads and staying in small towns, trying to avoid recognition while her legal team worked to clear her name. Her usual fleet of luxury cars and army of assistants were gone, replaced by this rented sedan, and the terrifying experience of being truly alone for the first time in her privileged life. As she drove toward the next town, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about Marcus Thompson. In her world of corporate boardrooms and high-stakes negotiations, genuine kindness was rare. Most people wanted something from her: money, connections, favors. But Marcus had helped her without knowing who she was, expecting nothing in return except the hope that someone would show the same kindness to his daughter if she ever needed it. Sarah pulled out her phone and, despite the weak signal, managed to search for Thompson Heating and Plumbing. She found a basic website with Marcus's photo and a phone number. The man who had just saved her from being stranded in a snowstorm ran a small local business and was probably struggling financially like many small business owners. For the first time in weeks, Sarah smiled genuinely. Marcus Thompson had no idea that his simple act of kindness was about to change both their lives forever. Marcus arrived at Emma's school just as the office was closing. The secretary, Mrs. Garcia, greeted him with a knowing smile. Emma Thompson was well liked by the staff, and everyone knew Marcus was doing his best as a single father after his wife died in a car accident 2 years ago. "Lunch money again?" Mrs. Garcia asked kindly. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, pulling out the crumpled 20 Mrs. Peterson had given him. "Emma's been so scattered lately. I think the stress of everything is getting to her." Mrs. Garcia waved away his apology. "Don't worry about it. Emma's a sweet girl, and we all know you're doing a great job with her." When Marcus picked up Emma from her after-school program, she threw her arms around his waist and buried her face in his work coveralls, not caring that they smelled like engine oil and coolant. "Sorry about forgetting lunch money, Daddy," she mumbled into his shirt. "It's okay, sweetheart. We all forget things sometimes." Marcus smoothed down her curly brown hair, so much like her mother's. "How was school today?" Emma brightened as they walked to the truck. "We started working on our science fair projects. I want to do something about how heating systems work. Mrs. Johnson said I could interview a real expert, and I told her my daddy knows everything about heaters." Marcus's heart swelled with pride and love for his daughter. Even when money was tight and the future felt uncertain, Emma's enthusiasm and innocence reminded him why he worked so hard. "I'd be happy to help with your project, Em. We can look at our furnace at home and I'll explain how it works." That evening, Marcus sat at their small kitchen table, sorting through bills by lamplight. The electricity bill was past due. The truck needed new tires, and Emma was growing out of her winter clothes fast. He rubbed his tired eyes and wondered how other single parents managed. Sometimes he felt like he was barely keeping his head above water. Emma was in the living room working on her homework by the light of their small Christmas tree. They couldn't afford many presents this year, but Marcus had found the tree at a discount lot, and Emma had declared it perfect despite its lopsided shape. His phone rang, interrupting his worried calculations. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. "Thompson Heating and Plumbing," he answered, expecting a late-night emergency call. "Is this Marcus Thompson?" The voice was familiar, but he couldn't place it. "Yes, this is Marcus. How can I help you?" "This is Sarah. You helped me with my car earlier today on Maple Road." Marcus remembered the stranded woman with the expensive coat and broken-down sedan. "Oh, right. Is your car okay? Did you make it to a mechanic?" "Yes, thank you. The mechanic said you did a perfect temporary repair." He was impressed that someone had the right part and knew exactly what to do. Sarah paused. "I was wondering if I could hire you for a heating job." Marcus glanced at the pile of bills. Any paying job would be welcome. "What kind of heating problem are you having?" I'm staying in a rental house on the outskirts of town, and the heating system isn't working properly. It's an older house, and the current repair company said they can't get parts for another week. With this cold snap, I really need heat. I understand. What's the address? I can come take a look tomorrow morning. Sarah gave him an address Marcus recognized as being in the expensive lakeside neighborhood where summer homes and rental properties cost more per week than most people made in a month. He wondered what Sarah did for work that allowed her to rent a place like that, especially in winter. I'll be there at 9, Marcus promised. My rate is $60 for the service call, plus parts and labor if I need to do any work. That sounds very reasonable. Thank you, Marcus. I really appreciate this. After hanging up, Marcus felt a small surge of hope. A job in that neighborhood might pay well, and if Sarah was happy with his work, she might recommend him to other wealthy homeowners in the area. Word-of-mouth recommendations were how small businesses like his survived and grew. The next morning, Marcus drove through the winding roads that led to the lakeside properties. The houses here were massive, with perfectly manicured lawns and expensive cars in every driveway. He felt self-conscious pulling up in his dented work truck, but reminded himself that his skills were just as valuable here as anywhere else. The address Sarah had given him led to a beautiful log cabin-style home, with large windows overlooking the frozen lake. It was smaller than some of the surrounding mansions, but still impressive. Marcus grabbed his toolbox and walked to the front door. Sarah answered quickly, as if she'd been watching for his truck. In the daylight, she looked different than she had on the snowy roadside. Her expensive clothes were more casual now, but Marcus could tell they cost more than his entire wardrobe. There was something guarded about her expression, like she was constantly looking over her shoulder. "Thank you for coming so quickly," she said, ushering him inside. "The heating system is in the basement. I'll show you the way." The house was beautifully furnished but felt strangely empty, like a showroom rather than a home. Marcus noticed there were no personal items anywhere, no family photos, no books, nothing that suggested someone actually lived here. In the basement, Marcus examined the heating system and immediately saw the problem. It was actually a simple fix, a clogged air filter and a faulty thermostat connection. The work would take less than an hour, but he could see why other repair companies might have overcomplicated the diagnosis. "This is an easy repair," Marcus told Sarah as she watched him work. "The filter was completely blocked and one of your thermostat wires came loose. I can have this running properly in about 30 minutes. Sarah seemed relieved. "The other company made it sound like a major problem that would cost hundreds to fix." "Some companies like to oversell repairs," Marcus said diplomatically. "But this is just basic maintenance that got overlooked." As Marcus worked, Sarah asked him questions about his business and his family. She seemed genuinely interested in hearing about Emma and his daily challenges as a single father. Most of his wealthy clients barely acknowledged his existence, treating him like part of the furniture, but Sarah was different. "Emma sounds like a wonderful daughter," Sarah said after Marcus told her about the science fair project. "It must be hard raising her alone." Marcus paused in his work, surprised by the personal comment. "Some days are harder than others, but she's worth every bit of effort. She's the best thing in my life." When Marcus finished the repair, the heating system hummed to life perfectly. Sarah smiled with genuine gratitude, the same expression she'd worn when he'd fixed her car. "How much do I owe you?" she asked. "60 for the service call, 15 for the filter, and let's call it 20 for labor," Marcus said. "95 total." Sarah handed him $200 bills. "Keep the change. You've saved me twice now, and fast. Quality work deserves fair payment." Marcus stared at the money. "Ma'am, this is way too much. The job was only 95. The extra is a tip for excellent service and for being someone I can trust," Sarah said firmly. "Please take it, you've earned it." As Marcus drove home with more money than he'd made in weeks, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Sarah than met the eye. But he was grateful for the work and the generous payment. For the first time in months, he wouldn't have to worry about keeping the lights on or putting food on the table. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah called Marcus 3 more times. Each job was legitimate but minor: a leaky faucet, a malfunctioning water heater pilot light, and a thermostat that needed recalibration. Each time she paid him far more than the work was worth, always insisting the extra money was for quality service. Marcus was grateful for the regular income, but he was also growing curious about his mysterious client. Sarah never mentioned having a job, yet she was renting an expensive lakeside house in the middle of winter. She seemed educated and intelligent, but also nervous, constantly checking her phone and looking out the windows as if expecting someone. Emma noticed the change in their financial situation immediately. When Marcus came home with groceries that included name-brand cereal and fresh fruit, she hugged him tightly. "Are we rich now, Daddy?" she asked innocently. "No, sweetheart, just having a good month with work," Marcus replied, not wanting to get her hopes up. "But we can afford a few treats." The truth was, Sarah's generous payments had allowed Marcus to catch up on his overdue bills and even start a small emergency fund. For the first time since his wife's death, he wasn't lying awake at night worrying about money. On his fourth visit to Sarah's rental house, Marcus arrived to find her pacing in the living room with her phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was tense, and she was speaking in what sounded like legal terminology. When she saw him through the window, she quickly ended the call and came to the door. "Marcus, thank you for coming so quickly," she said, but her usual composed demeanor was cracking. Her hands were shaking slightly as she led him to a supposedly problematic bathroom faucet. The faucet was working perfectly fine, which Marcus realized within seconds of examining it. He turned to find Sarah sitting on the edge of the bathtub, her head in her hands. "Sarah," Marcus said gently, "there's nothing wrong with this faucet." She looked up, and Marcus was surprised to see tears in her eyes. "I know. I'm sorry. I needed someone normal to talk to, someone who doesn't want anything from me." Marcus set down his toolbox and leaned against the bathroom doorframe. "Are you in some kind of trouble?" Sarah laughed bitterly. "You could say that. Have you been watching the news lately? Financial news?" Marcus shook his head. "I don't have much time for news. Between work and Emma, I mostly just catch the weather report." "Good," Sarah said quietly. "That's probably better." She stood up and walked to the bathroom window, looking out at the frozen lake. "Marcus, what I'm about to tell you might change how you see me. You might not want to work for me anymore." Marcus waited, sensing that whatever Sarah was about to reveal was important. "My name isn't just Sarah," she began slowly. "It's Sarah Montgomery. Does that name mean anything to you?" Marcus thought for a moment. "Montgomery? Like Montgomery Industries? The big company that's been in the news?" Sarah nodded. "My family built Montgomery Industries from nothing. My grandfather started with a single construction company, and over 3 generations we expanded into real estate, manufacturing, and technology. By the time I inherited control of the company 5 years ago, we were worth over $2 billion. Marcus felt his jaw drop. He was standing in a bathroom talking to a billionaire who had been calling him to fix perfectly functioning appliances. "What happened?" he asked simply. 3 weeks ago, federal investigators raided our corporate headquarters. They're claiming we've been involved in money laundering, tax evasion, and fraud. The media turned it into a circus overnight. My face has been on every financial news channel, and reporters are camped outside every property I own." Sarah turned away from the window to face Marcus. "The worst part is I didn't know about any of it. My father died last year and I inherited control of the company. But I trusted our CFO and legal team to handle the financial details while I focused on operations and expansion. Turns out they were using Montgomery Industries as a shell for moving dirty money for some very dangerous people." Marcus absorbed this information slowly. "Are you guilty of the charges?" "Legally? I don't know yet. I signed documents without reading them carefully because I trusted people I shouldn't have trusted. Morally? I was naive and irresponsible with other people's money and livelihoods. Thousands of employees are going to lose their jobs because of decisions made in my name." The weight of Sarah's confession settled between them. Marcus understood now why she seemed constantly nervous, why she was hiding in a rental house, and why she paid him so generously for simple jobs. "So you're on the run?" Marcus asked without judgment. "Not exactly. My lawyers know where I am, but I needed to get away from the media circus while they work on my case. This rental house belongs to a friend who's letting me stay here under a fake name. I've been trying to figure out how to rebuild my life while everything I've ever known falls apart around me. Marcus considered this for a long moment. In his experience, people revealed their true character during crisis, and Sarah's response to her situation told him a lot about who she really was. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked finally. Sarah smiled sadly. "Because you're the first person in weeks who's treated me like a human being instead of either a criminal or a meal ticket. When you helped me on the road that day, you didn't know I had money, and you didn't want anything from me except the hope that someone would help your daughter if she needed it. That kind of genuine kindness is rare in my world." She paused, then continued. "I've been calling you with fake problems because spending time around someone normal and decent helps me remember that there are still good people in the world. Your stories about Emma and your work remind me that there's life beyond corporate boardrooms and legal battles." Marcus felt a surge of sympathy for this woman who had everything and nothing at the same time. "What happens next for you?" "I don't know. The investigation could take months or years. If they find evidence that I knowingly participated in the illegal activities, I could go to prison. If not, I'll still have lost my company, my reputation, and most of my money to legal fees and settlements." Sarah walked over to her purse and pulled out an envelope. "This is why I asked you to come today. I'm giving you this in case something happens to me." Marcus took the envelope hesitantly. It was thick and sealed. "What is it?" "Something that could help you and Emma have a better life. But promise me you won't open it unless you really need to. I don't want you to think I'm trying to buy your friendship or that I see you as a charity case." Marcus turned the envelope over in his hands, feeling its weight. "Sarah, I appreciate everything you've done for me, but I can't take your money. You helped me earn what I needed through honest work, and that was enough. This isn't about money, Marcus. This is about making sure that if something happens to me, at least one good person benefits from the mess I've made of everything else." Before Marcus could protest further, Sarah's phone rang loudly. She looked at the caller ID and her face went pale. "That's my lawyer," she said, answering quickly. "Hello, Richard. What do you mean they found something? Are you sure? How long do I have?" As Marcus watched Sarah's face crumble during the phone conversation, he realized that whatever storm she'd been trying to weather was about to get much worse. Sarah hung up the phone with trembling hands. Her face had gone completely white, and Marcus could see she was struggling to breathe normally. "Sarah, what's wrong?" Marcus asked, moving closer in case she collapsed. "They found offshore accounts with my digital signature on them," she whispered. "Accounts I never opened, containing money I never saw, but somehow tied directly to me. My lawyer says the FBI will have an arrest warrant by morning." Marcus felt his stomach drop. He'd grown to genuinely like Sarah over the past 2 weeks, and seeing her pain was difficult to watch. "My lawyer thinks someone in my inner circle has been setting me up to take the fall," Sarah continued, sinking into a nearby chair. "They've been using my identity to authorize transactions while making sure all evidence points back to me. Richard says even if we can eventually prove I was framed, I'll be in federal prison for months while they investigate." Marcus sat down, across from her. "What are you going to do?" "Run," Sarah said simply. "Richard has a contact who can get me across the border into Canada tonight. From there, I can try to prove my innocence without sitting in a jail cell." Marcus frowned. "But if you run, won't that make you look guilty?" "Maybe. But if I stay and get arrested, the people who framed me will have time to destroy evidence and cover their tracks. My only chance is to find proof of what really happened before they silence me permanently." Sarah stood up and began pacing again. "Richard thinks the real criminals are part of a money laundering operation that's been using legitimate businesses like mine as cover. When the investigation started getting close, they decided to pin everything on me and disappear." The weight of Sarah's situation began to sink in for Marcus. This wasn't just about tax evasion or corporate fraud. She was dealing with people dangerous enough to frame a billionaire and potentially have her killed. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Marcus asked. though he wasn't sure what a small-town heating contractor could offer. Sarah looked at him with surprise and gratitude. "You've already helped more than you know. These past 2 weeks, talking with you and hearing about your normal life with Emma, it's kept me sane. But Marcus, once I leave tonight, you can't have any contact with me. If the FBI thinks you helped me escape, you could be charged as an accomplice." Marcus nodded, understanding the seriousness of the situation. "What about this house? Won't they trace you here?" "The rental is under my friend's name and she's out of the country. They might figure it out eventually, but hopefully I'll be long gone by then." Sarah walked to the window and peered out at the lake. "Richard is sending a car to pick me up at midnight. I'll take a boat across the lake to avoid the main roads." Marcus glanced at his watch. It was already 9 o'clock, which meant Sarah had less than 3 hours before she had to disappear forever. "What can I do to help you get ready?" Marcus asked. Sarah turned to him with tears in her eyes. "You don't understand. Once I get in that car tonight, I might never see you again. I might never know if Emma wins her science fair or if your business grows or if you find happiness again. That breaks my heart more than losing my company or my money." Marcus felt emotion welling up in his own chest. Over the past 2 weeks, he'd come to think of Sarah as more than just a client. She'd become a friend during one of the most difficult periods of his life, and now she was about to vanish into the night. "Sarah, I want you to know that no matter what happens, you're a good person. Anyone who would stop to help a stranger, fix her car, who pays fair wages to working people, and who cares about a little girl's science project, that person has a good heart." Sarah walked over and hugged Marcus tightly. "Thank you for saying that. Some days I wonder if I'm the terrible person the news makes me out to be." They spent the next hour helping Sarah pack the few belongings she could take with her. She had to travel light, taking only essential documents and enough cash to last a few weeks. Everything else, her expensive clothes, jewelry, and personal items, would be left behind. As they worked, Sarah told Marcus more about her life and her fears about the future. She talked about growing up with enormous privilege but also enormous pressure to live up to her family's legacy. She explained how isolating it was to never know if people liked her for herself or for her money. "When you helped me on the road, that day," Sarah said as she folded clothes into a small suitcase, "it was the first time in years that someone had been kind to me, without expecting anything in return. That meant more to me than you'll ever know." At 11:30, a pair of headlights appeared on the lake road. Sarah peered out the window and nodded grimly. "That's them," she said. "It's time." She picked up her suitcase and the small bag containing her most important documents. At the door, she turned back to Marcus one last time. "Promise me you'll take care of yourself and Emma. Don't let my problems affect your life in any way. If anyone asks, you were just a contractor who did some repair, work for a renter named Sarah. Nothing more." Marcus nodded, though his throat was tight with emotion. "What should I do with the envelope you gave me?" "Keep it safe. If you don't hear from me within 6 months, then open it." "But Marcus, I hope you never have to." Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "This is Richard's direct number. He's the only person who knows where I'm going. If something ever happens to you or Emma and you need help, call him. He'll know what to do." Marcus took the card and slipped it into his wallet next to the sealed envelope. "I hope you find the truth you're looking for," Marcus said softly. "And I hope you find your way back to a normal life someday." Sarah smiled sadly. "Take care of yourself, Marcus Thompson. You're one of the good ones." She walked out into the cold night air, her footsteps crunching in the snow as she made her way to the waiting car. Marcus watched from the window as the vehicle drove toward the lake, where a small boat was waiting to take her across to Canada. Within minutes, Sarah Montgomery, billionaire heiress, accused criminal, and his friend, had disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind only an empty rental house and 1,000 unanswered questions. Marcus locked up the house and drove home through the quiet streets, his mind spinning with everything that had happened. When he arrived home, Emma was asleep on the couch, surrounded by science fair research about heating systems. He gently carried his daughter to her bedroom and tucked her in, grateful for this simple, normal moment after the surreal evening he'd just experienced. As he turned off her light, Marcus wondered if he would ever see Sarah again, and whether she would find the justice she was searching for. In his wallet, the sealed envelope felt heavier than it should have, carrying with it the weight of friendship, trust, and an uncertain future. 3 weeks passed without any word from Sarah. Marcus tried to maintain his normal routine, but every news report about Montgomery Industries made his heart race. The media coverage was relentless. Sarah's face appeared on every financial news channel, always with headlines like "Billionaire Fugitive" or "Montgomery Heiress on the Run." The FBI had indeed issued an arrest warrant, and they were actively searching for Sarah. Marcus watched nervously as federal agents questioned residents throughout the lakeside neighborhood, getting closer to the rental house where Sarah had stayed. He stuck to the story they'd agreed upon. He was just a contractor who had done some repair work for a renter named Sarah. Emma's science fair was approaching, and she'd thrown herself into her project about heating systems with enthusiasm. That reminded Marcus of her mother. She interviewed Marcus extensively about different types of furnaces, water heaters, and thermostats, creating detailed diagrams and explanations that impressed even him. "Daddy, you're the smartest person I know about heaters," Emma declared, one evening as she worked on her presentation. "When I grow up, I want to help people stay warm just like you do." Marcus's heart swelled with pride and love. No matter what chaos was happening in the outside world, Emma remained his anchor to what truly mattered. On a cold February morning, Marcus was replacing a furnace filter for the Hendersons when his phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize, but something made him answer. "Thompson Heating and Plumbing," he said. "Marcus, it's Richard Castellanos, Sarah's attorney. Do you have a moment to talk privately?" Marcus's pulse quickened. "Hold on." He stepped outside the Hendersons' house and walked to his truck. "Okay, I can talk. Is Sarah all right?" "She's alive and safe, but her situation has become more complicated. I'm calling because she specifically asked me to check on you and Emma. She's been worried about whether her problems might have affected your life." "We're fine," Marcus assured him. "The FBI questioned me once about the rental house, but I told them exactly what Sarah said to tell them. I was just a contractor who did some repair work." "Good. That's important." Richard's voice was tense. "Marcus, I need you to listen carefully. We've uncovered evidence that proves Sarah was framed, but the people who did it are extremely dangerous. They've already killed 2 potential witnesses, and they're now trying to eliminate anyone who had contact with Sarah." Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. "Are you saying Emma and I are in danger?" "Possibly. We don't think they know about your connection to Sarah yet, but we can't be certain. Sarah has been beside herself with worry that helping her might have put you and your daughter at risk." Marcus leaned against his truck, trying to process this information. "What kind of evidence did you find?" "Digital records showing that Sarah's former CFO, Daniel Morrison, has been working with a money laundering syndicate for years. They used Sarah's company as a front while she focused on legitimate business operations. When the investigation started closing in, Morrison made Sarah the scapegoat and disappeared with millions of dollars." "Where is Sarah now?" Marcus asked. "I can't tell you that over the phone, but she's working with Canadian authorities and the FBI to expose the real criminals. The problem is Morrison and his associates know she has evidence that could destroy them. They're willing to kill to keep her quiet." Richard paused, then continued. "Sarah asked me to give you an option. We can provide protection for you and Emma while this plays out, or we can help you relocate somewhere safe with new identities if necessary." Marcus felt overwhelmed. 6 weeks ago, his biggest worry was paying the electricity bill on time. Now, he was being offered witness protection because he'd helped a stranger fix her car. "How long would this last?" Marcus asked. "If everything goes well, maybe a few months. Sarah's evidence is strong, but building a federal case takes time. The syndicate Morrison works for has connections in law enforcement and politics, so we have to be extremely careful about who we trust." Marcus thought about Emma, innocently working on her science fair project, while dangerous criminals might be hunting for them. "What does Sarah want us to do?" "She wants you to be safe above everything else. She blames herself for bringing this danger into your lives, even though you chose to help her without knowing the risks." Marcus closed his eyes, weighing his options. Moving Emma away from her school, her friends, and the only home she'd ever known would be devastating for her. But staying put while dangerous criminals might be looking for them was equally terrifying. Richard, I need to ask you something honestly. Do you really think we're in immediate danger? Or is this just a precaution? There was a long pause. Yesterday, someone broke into the apartment of Sarah's former personal assistant. Nothing was stolen, but her computer was destroyed and her files were searched. The assistant had no information about Sarah's whereabouts, but they didn't know that. Marcus felt his blood run cold. So they're going after anyone who had contact with her. It appears that way. Morrison's people are systematic and thorough. If they discover your connection to Sarah, they won't care that you're innocent or that you have a young daughter. The weight of the situation settled on Marcus's shoulders like a heavy blanket. He thought about Emma's excited chatter about the science fair, her friends at school, their small but comfortable life together. All of it could be destroyed because he'd stopped to help a stranger on a snowy road. What would protection look like? Marcus asked. Federal marshals would watch your house and Emma's school. You'd have a panic button to call for immediate help. We'd monitor your phone calls and internet activity to make sure Morrison's people haven't tracked you down. It's not a normal life, but you could stay in your home. Marcus considered this. And relocation? New names, new location, financial support to start over. Complete protection, but you'd have to leave everything behind permanently. Emma would have to leave her school and friends, and you'd never be able to contact anyone from your old life again. The thought of taking Emma away from everything she knew made Marcus's heart ache. She'd already lost her mother. Asking her to lose. Her entire world seemed cruel. Can I have some time to think about it? Marcus asked. A few hours, maybe. But Marcus, if Morrison's people are as close as we think they are, waiting too long could be dangerous. After hanging up, Marcus sat in his truck for several minutes, trying to figure out how to explain this situation to an 8-year-old girl. How do you tell a child that the normal life she's always known might have to end because her father helped a stranger? He finished the Henderson's furnace repair in a daze, his mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. When he picked up Emma from school, she chattered excitedly about practicing her science fair presentation, completely unaware that their world might be about to turn upside down. That evening, after Emma had gone to bed, Marcus called Richard back. I've made my decision, Marcus said. We'll take the protection option and stay here. Emma's been through enough upheaval losing her mother. I won't take away her home and friends unless there's absolutely no other choice. I understand, Richard replied. I'll have marshals in place by tomorrow morning. They'll be discreet, but they'll be watching. And Marcus? Sarah wanted me to tell you something. What? She said that if she'd known helping her would put you in danger, she would have frozen to death on that roadside before letting you stop. But she also said that your kindness gave her the strength to keep fighting when everything seemed hopeless. She wants you to know that whatever happens, she considers knowing you and Emma one of the few good things to come out of this nightmare. After hanging up, Marcus walked to Emma's room and watched her sleep peacefully, surrounded by her heating system research and drawings. Tomorrow, their quiet life would change forever. But tonight, she was still just a little girl dreaming about winning the science fair. Marcus pulled the sealed envelope Sarah had given him from his wallet and held it up to the light. He'd promised not to open it unless he really needed to, but with federal marshals about to take over their lives, he wondered if that time had come. Instead, he put the envelope back in his wallet. Sarah had trusted him to keep his word, and despite everything that was happening, he wouldn't break that trust. As Marcus finally went to bed, he found himself praying for Sarah's safety and hoping that somehow this nightmare would end with justice served and innocent people protected. But deep down, he knew that their lives had been permanently changed by one act of kindness on a snowy road, and there was no going back to the simple existence they'd once known. The federal marshals were as discreet as promised, but Emma noticed the changes immediately. The unfamiliar cars parked on their street, the way Marcus now walked her directly to the school entrance instead of dropping her off at the curb, the tension in his voice when he talked on the phone. "Daddy, are we in trouble?" Emma asked one morning as they drove to school past yet another unmarked government vehicle. Marcus had prepared for this question, but it was still difficult to answer. Remember how I helped that lady Sarah with her car? Well, it turns out she was dealing with some bad people who were trying to hurt her. The police are just making sure those bad people don't bother us. Emma processed this with the serious expression she wore when working on complicated math problems. Is Sarah okay? I hope so, sweetheart. But we might not see her again for a while. The science fair arrived 3 weeks later, and Emma's presentation on heating systems was outstanding. She explained complex concepts with clarity and enthusiasm, demonstrating how different types of furnaces worked using models she'd built with Marcus's help. When she won second place in her grade level, Marcus felt pride swell in his chest despite the armed federal agents watching from the back of the school auditorium. I couldn't have done it without the best heating expert in the world helping me, Emma announced during her acceptance speech, pointing to Marcus in the audience. Several parents chuckled, not knowing that Marcus was under federal protection, or that his expert knowledge had come from years of struggling to keep their own heating bills affordable. That evening, as they celebrated Emma's success with pizza and ice cream, Marcus's phone rang. Richard's number appeared on the screen. "Congratulations to Emma," Richard said when Marcus answered. Sarah saw the news article about the science fair online. She was so proud that she cried. "You've been in contact with her?" Marcus asked, stepping into the kitchen where Emma couldn't overhear. "She called me this morning." "Marcus, I have good news. We've made a breakthrough in the case." Marcus felt hope surge in his chest for the first time in weeks. "What kind of breakthrough?" Morrison made a mistake. He tried to access one of Sarah's accounts from a computer in Mexico, not realizing we'd been monitoring all her financial activity. The IP trace led Mexican authorities right to him. He's been arrested, and he's already started talking to avoid extradition to face murder charges. "That's wonderful news," Marcus said, feeling some of the tension leave his shoulders. "It gets better. Morrison has provided evidence that implicates 12 other people in the money laundering operation, including 2 corrupt FBI agents who were feeding information to the syndicate. The case against Sarah has been dropped completely, and she's been cleared of all charges." Marcus sank into a kitchen chair, overwhelmed with relief. "So she can come home?" "She's already on her way back to the United States. The Justice Department has agreed to return her seized assets, though it will take time to sort through everything. More importantly for you, Morrison's arrest means the threat to you and Emma is over. The marshals will maintain light surveillance for another week just to be safe, but you can return to your normal lives." Marcus felt tears spring to his eyes. For weeks, he'd been living with the constant fear that Emma might be hurt because of his decision to help a stranger. Now, finally, that nightmare was ending. "Richard," Marcus said, "when will we be able to see Sarah again?" "Soon. She asked me to tell you that she has something important to discuss with you, but she wants to do it in person. She should be back in the country by the end of the week." After hanging up, Marcus returned to the living room where Emma was arranging her second-place ribbon next to a photo of her mother. "Good news, Em," Marcus said, sitting beside her on the couch. "Those bad people I told you about have been caught. Everything can go back to normal now." Emma looked up at him with her mother's eyes. "Does that mean Sarah is safe too?" "Yes, sweetheart. Sarah is safe, and we might get to see her again soon." Emma smiled broadly. "I hope she comes to visit. I want to show her my science fair project." 4 days later, Marcus was replacing a water heater for the Johnsons when his phone rang. Sarah's name appeared on the caller ID, and Marcus's heart jumped. "Sarah, are you really okay?" "I'm more than okay, Marcus. I'm free. The charges have been dropped, my name has been cleared, and the people who framed me are either in custody or running for their lives." Sarah's voice was lighter than Marcus had heard it since that first day on the snowy road. "I'm so glad," Marcus said, and he meant it deeply. "When can we see you?" "How about tonight? I'm driving up to see you and Emma. I have so much to tell you both, and I have something important to give you." That evening, Marcus and Emma waited nervously in their living room. When Sarah's car pulled into their driveway, Emma ran to the window. "She looks different, Daddy," Emma observed. Sarah did look different. The haunted, fearful expression was gone, replaced by genuine happiness. She wore simple jeans and a sweater instead of expensive business clothes, and her smile was radiant as she walked to their front door. Emma threw herself into Sarah's arms the moment the door opened. "Sarah, Daddy said you were safe, but I was still worried." Sarah hugged Emma tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I'm safe, sweetheart, and I'm so proud of you for winning second place at the science fair. I saw the article online and I bragged about you to everyone." They spent the evening catching up, with Sarah telling them about her time in hiding and the investigation that had cleared her name. She explained that most of her wealth had been recovered, along with evidence that she'd been completely innocent of the crimes she'd been accused of. "What will you do now?" Marcus asked as Emma showed Sarah her science fair project. "That's what I came to talk to you about," Sarah said. "Marcus, the past few months have taught me what really matters in life. It's not corporate boardrooms or stock portfolios. It's relationships with good people, honest work, and making a positive difference in the world." Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a thick folder of documents. "I'm starting a foundation to help small businesses and working families. I want to provide microloans, business development support, and emergency assistance to people who need a helping hand." She handed Marcus the folder. "I want you to be the director of the foundation. You understand what working families need because you've lived it. You know the difference between a handout and a hand-up because you've needed both." Marcus stared at the documents, overwhelmed. "Sarah, I'm honored, but I don't have experience running a foundation. I fix furnaces and replace water heaters." "And you do it with integrity, kindness, and dedication," Sarah replied. "Those are the qualities I need in someone I can trust with millions of dollars meant to help people." She pulled out another document. "The foundation will pay you a salary of $80,000 a year, plus benefits and a budget to hire staff. You can still run your heating business if you want, or focus entirely on the foundation work." Marcus looked at Emma, who was listening with wide eyes. $80,000 a year was more money than he'd ever imagined making. It would mean Emma could go to college, they could buy a decent car, and he'd never have to choose between paying bills and buying groceries again. "There's one more thing," Sarah said, smiling. "The foundation's headquarters will be here in town. I'm moving back to live near the people I care about most. I'm buying a small house on Maple Street about 6 blocks from here." Emma jumped up excitedly. "You're going to live near us?" "Really?" "Really," Sarah confirmed. "If your dad accepts the job, we'll be working together to help families just like yours. And Emma, I was hoping you might want to be our first junior advisor. We'll need someone young and smart to help us understand what kids need." Marcus felt emotion welling up in his chest. 6 months ago, he'd been a struggling single father worried about keeping the lights on. Now, because he'd stopped to help a stranger, his entire life was about to change in the most wonderful way possible. "Yes," Marcus said simply. "Yes to all of it." That night, after Sarah had gone home and Emma had finally fallen asleep, Marcus remembered the sealed envelope in his wallet. He pulled it out and carefully opened it for the first time. Inside was a check for $100,000 and a handwritten note. "Marcus, this is not charity. This is a thank you from someone whose life you saved in more ways than you'll ever know. Use it to build something beautiful for Emma's future. With all my love and gratitude, Sarah." Marcus held the check and the note, thinking about the incredible journey that had started with a simple act of kindness on a snowy road. He'd helped a stranger fix her car without knowing she was a billionaire, and in return, she'd helped him discover that sometimes the most important repairs aren't done with wrenches and screwdrivers, but with compassion and human connection. As he tucked Emma into bed, she sleepily asked, "Daddy, are we rich now?" Marcus smiled, thinking not just about the money, but about the friendship, purpose, and hope that had entered their lives. "We're rich in all the ways that matter, sweetheart. We're rich in all the ways that matter."